Ladies and gentlemen, Chairman of the Board, Board members, representatives from our regulators at National Treasury, the FSCA and the Ombudsman Council, fellow staff members and industry colleagues. It's that time of the year again. Indeed, it is once more my great pleasure to welcome you to the launch of the Ombudsman for Banking Services' latest annual report. But before I say more, I would like to hand over to our Chairman, Advocate John Meyerberg SC, for an introduction.
Welcome everybody to this remote launch of the annual report of the OBS. The report will become available on the OBS website immediately after this presentation. There are a few matters I wish to highlight. Firstly, despite COVID, the workload of the OBS increased. Secondly, the OBS coped with the additional work, for example, by outsourcing some of the legal work, employing 2 additional members of staff, and restructuring the various departments. Thirdly, the financial affairs of the OBS are in good order. There was a clean audit, and the banks, large and small, continued to support the OBS. There was no turnover of staff. As far as the merger of the OBS with the other voluntary ombuds is concerned, National Treasury has not made a decision on whether or not to accept the recommendations in the World Bank Diagnostic Report. The OBS has nevertheless continued to engage with the other voluntary ombuds with a view to achieve a voluntary merger of the ombud schemes. The Board is pleased with the manner in which Reana and the OBS team handled working remotely while keeping the office going. In closing, I would like to thank the members of the OBS team for their hard work and dedication. I also take this opportunity to thank my fellow board members for their ongoing commitment and keen interest in guiding the OBS. And lastly, a special word of thanks to Reana for her leadership, under which the OBS continues to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you to the Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, last year this time we spoke about the symbolic significance of porcelain and lace. This year the narrative is set to reach new heights, quite literally, as our theme for the 2021 annual report is nothing less than origami birds. So let me explain why our theme of choice is rather more than a flight of fantasy. To begin with, and trite as it may sound, we have taken our operation to new heights, and we have taken more consumers under our wing. In 2021, we opened and closed more cases than ever before in the history of the organization. We fielded more calls, we doubled the number of referrals in the last 2 years, and we recovered just under 19.5 million rand for consumers. And the health of our staff as well as the finances has never been better. Other characteristics of birds which we admire are that they are curious and aware, intelligent and empathetic, and social beings, capable of understanding vulnerability and seeking connection. Much, dare I say, like the Banking Ombudsman team. If you consider the manner in which we approach our investigations, as well as the vulnerable consumer initiatives. Having heard all this, you are hopefully ready to get a bird's eye view of our year, from operations, case studies, through to our communications and corporate social responsibility initiatives. As I speak, my colleagues Erich Buitendorp, Narosha Massetti and Kwanda Vabaza are waiting in the wings, so to speak, to update you on their respective fields and what enabled us to fly a little higher. Erich will now try to steal the show with his statistics. Narosha will tell you, with a smile, how we raised the bar when it came to the investigations and adjudication of complaints. And Kwanda will explain why our communications and marketing are on an upward trajectory, as well as how we reached out through our CSR initiatives. I now hand over to Erich.
Thank you, Reana, and good morning, everybody. Aaron Levenstein, the well-known author and professor of business administration, once said that statistics are like bikinis. What they reveal is suggestive, but what they conceal is vital. While that might be true for most statistics, at the OBS the opposite is true. Our statistics are an open book, and we are extremely proud of the system that we have developed over the years and which we continue to streamline with the assistance of our stakeholders. The statistics of the office serve more than one purpose. Firstly, we use it internally as a management tool to monitor our progress and whether or not we are achieving the targets set at the beginning of each year. And where we fall short, we are able to make timeliest plans to rectify the situation. Secondly, the statistics are used by our stakeholders, the banks, to assess their complaints handling and trends. Through the Power BI program, the big banks continuously have access to our statistics in real time. And then lastly, the statistics form part of feedback from management to the board, who are tasked with overseeing our performance and that we meet our mandate and set targets in alignment to the values of independence, impartiality, and fairness. Referrals are those complaints where the office assists the complainant to submit their complaints to the bank in the first instance. Our process, which is in line with international best practice, requires that complainants first be referred to the relevant bank for parties to try and resolve it. However, many consumers contact our office requesting us to assist with submitting their complaints to the bank. The office referred 10,338 cases to the bank in 2021, an increase of 23% from 2020. If the matter is not resolved in the initial 20 working days between the bank and the complainant, a formal complaint is opened. We opened 8,257 formal complaints. This is 7% more than in 2020. Looking at our closures in 2021, we closed 9% more cases than the year before. Every year, we feel the need to explain that the number of files opened per bank is not necessarily indicative of a bank's complaint handling performance, or their performance in general, for that matter. Banks vary considerably in size, client profile, and product mix, and these factors all impact on the number of complaints made against the bank at the OBS. Most banks saw an increase in formal cases opened, with Standard Bank and Capitec leading the pack. Standard Bank's formal cases increased by 32%, while Capitec's increased by 31%. The biggest increase was for Time Bank. Its number of formal openings increased by 870% in 2021. But there's no need for alarm, as they came from a very low base in 2019 and 2020. The amount of formal cases opened for F&B in 2021 decreased by an impressive 34%. The top 6 categories of cases opened remained unchanged, but for their position. Topping the list was internet banking with 19% of our complaints. This was up 6% from 2020. Mobile banking fraud and phishing remains the 2 highest subcategories of internet banking complaints. Current account complaints represent 16% of our complaints opened, down 3% from 2020. The biggest subcategories of complaints in the current account category were fraud, fees and charges, and no notice being given about account closures. These subcategories made up 87% of current account complaints. ATM complaints keep decreasing year on year as more people move away from using ATMs and bank branches and focus more on internet banking. ATMs are down 6% from 2 years ago. The role of the banking ombud is to resolve banking complaints in a fair, independent and speedy manner. Our office found in favour of complainants in 27% of the cases, indicating once again that the most matters being capable of early resolution were resolved by the banks, leaving our office to deal with more complex matters. While the number may appear low, it is in line with international experiences at other ombuds offices. The 73% of cases in favour of the banks is indicative of the fairness in which the banks and their internal dispute resolution departments treat complainants and their complaints, based of course on the plus-minus 8,000 cases we handled. The complaints were upheld fully in 15.9% of the cases. Cases that had no merit increased from 2020, and we could not uphold the complaint in 72.7% of the cases. There was, however, an increase in matters where we assisted the complainant in positively resolving their complaint, but without making a formal finding against the bank. These matters now make up 6.6% of the cases closed. The commitment to resolve banking complaints in a maximum of 4 months was positively upheld at a rate of 89%. 2% better than in 2020. At times, our office experienced delays in getting responses from the bank. This has, however, now improved. Furthermore, approximately 99% of our complaints were finalised within 6 months of date of opening. We were able to close our cases in an average of 69 days in 2021, an increase of 3% from 2020, mostly due to the complex nature of certain investigations that our office dealt with in 2021. In 2021, the OBS combined the assessment and investigations departments, and we no longer distinguish between assessments or investigations. Most of the cases that we opened went on to the adjudication department, with 88% of our cases being closed in adjudication and only 12% as settled after formal cases were opened by the case processing department. Word of mouth and bank referrals remain top of the list for how complainants heard about our office, on 33% and 29% respectively. We have included new categories going forward, as too many complainants selected other while logging their complaint with our website. The next statistics we would like to highlight is the demographic section of our report. This section highlights the racial breakdown of our complainants, as well as the top categories of complaints logged by them. A note of caution: not all complainants completed these questions, as they are not compulsory. But in 2021, we are happy to report that a record number of 81% of our complainants voluntarily completed the demographic section. Of these, 55% of the complainants were male and 45% were female. Of these, 20.5% of complainants were over the age of 65. Almost 66.9% of our complainants fall within the age category of 35 to 64, and only 12.6% can be identified as youth. When looking at the provincial demographics, it provides useful information for our marketing efforts because it clearly indicates where consumer awareness should be focused. In 2020, Gauteng, as per usual, had the largest number of complaints, with 44% of the total. This was followed by the Western Cape on 15% and KwaZulu-Natal on 13%. The least amount of complaints were once again received from the Northern Cape, with 2% of our total complaints. In August 2020, the OBS released an internal vulnerable consumer policy, and in line with that policy, we started recording statistics to track the number and category of vulnerable consumers that lodged complaint with our offices. 2021 was the first full year of information gathered, and we recorded 237 vulnerable consumers, which constitutes approximately 3% of all our complaints. These complaints are either fast-tracked or their vulnerability highlighted by the team to ensure that these customers are not further inconvenienced or disadvantaged. The 5 main categories of vulnerable consumers identified thus far is further broken down into subcategories, as highlighted on this slide. 92% of our vulnerable consumers are classified as such because of their age or a life event that occurred, which is mostly retrenchments or death of a spouse or partner. The following slide sets out the top 5 subcategories of vulnerable consumers, where we break down the age ranges and life events into further age bands and categories. 40% fall within the ages of 65 to 75, while 22% fall within the ages of 75 to 85. Retrenchments make up 17% of all vulnerable consumers. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the highlight of the statistics. All of the statistics just mentioned and a few additional ones appear in the report, which is now available on our website. I'm now handing you over to Narosha that will take you through some case studies.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is very evident from our statistics that the adjudication department was kept quite busy in the past year. As we reflect on the year gone by, we are happy to report on our achievements, our wins, and the lessons learned. The purpose of the adjudication department is to explore in detail the allegations made by the bank customer, to examine the evidence in depth, and to determine whether there is any merit in the allegations of negligence or misconduct on the part of the bank. If after an objective assessment of the evidence presented, it is concluded that there is merit to the complaint that is lodged, the next level of inquiry is to determine the appropriate award that must be made. The investigation process entails numerous back and forth written communication between our office, the banks, and often the complainants. It also entails frequent meetings with banks to ventilate the issues, explore the legal considerations, and find an amicable conclusion. The long-standing relationship that has been established with our stakeholders over the years has proven to be very valuable in resolving complaints fairly and timeously, as the role and purpose of our office is well understood. it has been an action-packed year. From the bank customer who was in search of a sweet deal, she claimed that all she required was a box of Lindt chocolate from a bank to appease her unhappiness for the bad customer service she received, to the complainant who alleged that due to the bank restructuring his bond account without agreement, his wife was nagging him on a daily basis and he was now in couples therapy. He wanted compensation for the pain and suffering that he was enduring. You will read all about the drama in our annual report. We cater for all your needs with genres ranging from crime, fraud, and even some soap operas lined up. It is no surprise that fraud has remained the highest dispute category. We can forget about the Tinder swindler. We have quite a few ingenious swindlers of our own. You will note the modus operandi of these fraudsters in some of the case summaries in our report. I am going to share with you some insight today into some of the matters that were considered by our office in the past year. A more detailed account appears in our annual report. In one of the matters that was investigated by our office, the complainant queried the time taken by the bank to respond to and action her request for an international transfer. The complainant stated that it took the bank from the 21st of February 2020 to the 3rd of March 2020 to effect the requested transfer. As a result of the delay, the complainant suffered a loss of $162,000 due to exchange rate fluctuations. Our office investigated the matter and requested the bank to provide our office with its service level agreement with the customer. We requested clarity on the process that is followed by the bank when it is requested to do an international transfer. The bank submitted that their service level agreement requires a customer's request to be acknowledged within 24 hours. The customer requested the international transfer on the 21st of February 2020, which was a Friday, at 14:22. This request should have been acknowledged within 24 hours, being the 24th of February 2020, the Monday at 14:22. The consultant only acknowledged the request 4 days later, on the 27th of February 2020, Thursday, and in addition to acknowledging the request, attached the required documents for completion by the customer in order to action the request. The consultant then went on leave. The complainant emailed the consultant the completed documents within a few hours on the night of the 27th of February, the Thursday. At this stage, the consultant was already out of the office. We drew the bank's attention to the initial delay in acknowledging the request, which in our view was the essence of the argument. Therefore, we held that had the consultant acted timeously herein, in accordance with the service level agreement, she would have noted receipt of the documents on the 25th of February 2020, and the request would have been processed and the rate confirmed on the 26th of February 2020. It was evident in this instance that the transfer could have been finalized within 3 days. The only reason that the process took longer was due to the delays on the part of the bank. It is unfair to prejudice the customer for the bank's failure to follow its own service level agreement. It was on this basis that we recommended that the customer be given the benefit of the exchange rate on the 26th of February 2020. The bank accepted our recommendation and an amount of $162,000 was refunded to the customer. In another interesting matter, the complainant, a 65-year-old pensioner, was a victim of card swapping at an ATM. He contacted his banker immediately after and requested his card to be stopped. However, transactions totaling a sum of $29,000 went off his account. The complainant advised that on the day in question, he immediately stopped the card at the ATM using his ID number. The bank, however, stated that he stopped the wrong card. The customer advised that he did not understand the bank's contentions in this regard, as he only had one card. We requested the bank to provide the details of the cards noted on the complainant's ATM profile. Our investigation into the complaint ascertained that the card number that was noted on the ATM when the complainant stopped the card was in fact the customer's old check card number. He subsequently upgraded his account and was issued with a new card. However, the new card was not listed under this profile at the ATM. It was tabled with the bank that it is reasonable to expect an old card to be removed from your profile once a new card is issued, especially under the profile for stop card at the bank's ATM. It was therefore our recommendation that the bank should reimburse the loss in full. Fairness and reasonableness is always at the center of the findings made by our office. In one particular matter, the complainant held a vehicle finance account with the bank. He last made payment towards the account in 2010 and therefore the debt had prescribed. The complainant had been requesting the bank for the NATIS documents. However, the bank refused and requested that the complainant make an offer to settle the account. The prescription of the debt means that the bank cannot proceed with any legal action for the recovery of the debt. However, the debt was never settled, and therefore the bank remained the legal title holder of the vehicle. Ownership of the vehicle cannot pass until such time as the full amount owing to the bank had been settled in full. Although the bank's claim in terms of the installment agreement had prescribed, the claim against the vehicle had not. It was held by the Supreme Court of Appeal in the case of ABSA Bank versus Keat that even though the monetary debt had prescribed, the bank still had a claim over the thing, being the vehicle. The bank, therefore, legally had a right to claim the return of the vehicle as they remained the legal title holder. We therefore were unable to recommend to the bank to release the original NATIS documents to the complainant. The bank, however, was willing to engage the complainant and consider a fair amount that would need to be paid in order to transfer ownership. For my final example, it was important to consider that a bank whom is not party to a contract cannot be held liable for the terms and conditions concluded between the two parties whom contracted. In one particular matter, the complainant held a joint bond with her ex-husband. The parties had been divorced in 2019, and in terms of the divorce agreement, the property was to be transferred to the complainant. The complainant therefore requested the bank to remove her ex-husband from the bond account. The agreement was between the complainant and her ex-husband. To give effect to the terms and conditions in respect of the bond account, the complainant, who was to take over the repayment of the bond, was to submit an application to the bank for a substitution of debtor. Such an application will be treated by the bank as a new credit application, and in so doing, the bank is required to assess affordability in accordance with the provisions of the National Credit Act. The complainant would therefore only be successful with the substitution of debtor application if she was able to afford the bond repayment on her own. The divorce settlement agreement was not binding on the bank. Whilst the industry has made great inroads in aligning itself with the obligations imposed by COFI and the TCF principles, our experience is that there is still some way to go and room for improvement. It remains a work in progress, and we believe that our input and investigations provide valuable insights. As Mandela once said, after climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb. As we take away many valuable learnings from 2021, we remain firmly focused on our goal, and that is to remain committed to resolving disputes fairly and reasonably, and to continue to strive towards excellence in dispute resolution. I wish to commend the adjudication team for their hard work, passion, and dedication. It certainly takes a special someone to excel in dispute resolution, and we are very proud of a job very well done. Thank you.
Good morning to all the guests attending this virtual launch for our annual report for 2021. I'm pleased to give some insights into the communications and marketing activities of the OBS. Our aim as the OBS has always been to establish and maintain meaningful but lasting relationships with all our stakeholders, such as the banks, our consumers, as well as our stakeholders. This, of course, has not been easy, particularly in the COVID era, where we're forced to continually adapt to ensure that we remain true to our vision to deliver awareness to consumers of banking products and services of the various issues affecting them. It is our belief that consumer education and awareness initiatives are the key to creating confidence in the banking sector. Whilst we have high ambitions, we also recognize the need to be flexible in our approach and to have systems in place that encourage greater stakeholder inclusion rather than promote exclusivity. All of this is much more than just a lip service. It has become an exact science with quantifiable outcomes. For example, each year we aim to achieve and reach more people than we did the previous year. Our aim is simple. We want to be known and trusted by banking consumers of all the 9 provinces, no matter how remote their geographical location is. The advertising equivalency, which is an AVE, is the benchmark by which we measure the success of our PR efforts, and each year our AVE figures have been way higher than our annual PR budget. In 2021, which is the year under consideration, we did extremely well, if I can say so myself. We collected an impressive AVE of over 28 million and reached over 469 million people, which was a major improvement from the 303 million people reached in 2020. This measurement takes into account all the articles and interviews online in the print media, radio, and television. Although the numbers seem good, we are still not satisfied, as we believe that we can and should still reach more people. Our target this year is therefore to do more in order to surpass these numbers. This is also true with our social media platforms. Over the past few years, it has become an undeniable truth that social media has become a very important part of our lives. Arguably, every day and every minute there is someone browsing through their socials. Because of this realization, and since it is one of our aims to meet people where they are, we have intensified our social media presence and expansion, which has resulted in our social media following on both Facebook and Twitter, growing to over 14,880 followers. While these numbers may appear low, we are pleased with our progress, particularly when compared to the statistics of other similar non-profit organizations. Averaging over 50 messages daily, our WhatsApp platform has proven itself to be the favored option for customers wanting to lodge complaints or simply inquire about our service. This is not surprising since most people in South Africa use the WhatsApp platform. Last on the PR front is our consumer education awareness efforts. In this regard, a number of our other stakeholders have over the years played a huge role in assisting us to execute our mandate, which is to educate and raise awareness about banking issues. For example, in 2021, we partnered with the Financial Sector Conduct Authority and the National Credit Regulator to participate in their webinar consumer education initiatives. We are truly grateful to all our stakeholders for the important role they continue to play in educating and uplifting the South African consumers, and we will continue to partner with them whenever possible and to support their initiatives. Equally to the fulfillment of our communication and PR mandate is our office's desire to play its part to the fulfillment of its adopted CSRI obligations. Gandhi said that the true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. As an organization, each year we want to make a small but meaningful impact in the lives of the people around us, especially those who are less fortunate. We have found that giving is truly good for the soul of this office, and this is evidenced by the eagerness of every staff member to not only give material gifts, but also their willingness to give their time in our execution of our CSRI initiatives. In keeping with our tradition to participate in the Mandela Day activities, we partnered with an organization called Foundation of Love, where we donated perishable and non-perishable goods that they needed. Fountain of Love is an orphanage based in the East Rand, which feeds 51 children from the age of 2 and runs a soup kitchen for community members in need. It was a privilege for our office to have participated in such a worthy cause, and as an organization, we are looking forward to doing more this year. In another initiative, our HR manager, Shirley McMaster, identified another need, and being the givers that they are, our female staff members contributed much needed toiletry bags to the National Freedom Network, which is an NPO committed to rescuing and assisting victims of human trafficking. We are thankful and proud of the OBS staff for their contributions and support. Our desire is to continue to support causes that make a significant positive difference in our communities, leaving the world a better place and our team with a growing, glowing feeling. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, as you've heard and will see in the report, while the general trend was upward, not every landing was happy. But we remain as ever ready to take our operation to the next level, whatever the weather. The health of both our stakeholders and the South African banking public lies at the heart of what we do. Talking about health, I don't need to remind anyone that the pandemic has changed the way we do things, probably forever. In the face of this challenge, we have decided to channel our energy productively. Every day we ask ourselves, am I being the best version of myself? What I have seen time after time this past year is how each member of my team has taken the time to pause, reflect, and make the necessary adjustments, not just to improve themselves, but to become active agents of positive change in this ADR space, which is consistently demanding and challenging. While peace is unlikely in the arena in which we operate, we have attempted to bring healing where it is due. My sincere gratitude goes to all the OBS staff, my wonderful management team, the board, and in particular to the chairman, for their commitment and hard work. I also wish to thank my colleagues from the Long-Term Insurance Ombudsman, the Credit Ombud, and the Short-Term Insurance Ombudsman for their support and cooperation in light of the changing landscape. Thank you also to the Interim Chief Ombud, Ms. Aileen Meyer, and the positive impact she has made on our world. Last but not least, thank you to BASA and our member banks for your continued and unwavering support. In my experience, we challenge each other every day to be better and to do better, and the banking customers are reaping the benefit. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my hope and my belief that what you heard and will read in the report will bear evidence of our commitment. Thank you for this brief visit to our world. We have reached the end of our presentation, and for those who are interested, we will now be available to take some questions. Thank you.